All right, so today we're gonna go over replacing steering head bearings. I want some water. Replacing steering head bearings on your bike, and you'll need a special tool to get bearings off. I already have the bearing off of the Triple Tree, and you will need a special tool such as this to get the bearing off. And I'd wipe it clean and put some heat to it to trying to assist before you put this guy on and go to town on him. It can be a fight, especially if it's been there a while, but like I said, this special tool will get the bearing off. I don't have the video of that because I wasn't smart. And then after that, you'll also need to pull your bearing races in the neck of your bike. Now you can do this by heating it up and using a drift punch or chisel tool of some sort and just lightly knock it out. But there are special tools out there like this one. This is very nice from Motion Pro. So just gonna get this guy out. It's not an expensive tool, and it's if you're gonna be replaced or you got a lot of bikes, continuously service them, you won't need to pull these bearings out that often, or replace these bearings that often. But if you're as tore down as far as I am, doing a complete rebuild on a bike, it's nice to have some special tools to make it a little easier on you. And where did that 12 go? Oh, it's right here. Should be nice and snug. You'll just do this for the other side too. Get your bearing race out of there. And before we get too far into this, it's extra credit if you throw your new bearing races and your bearings, well, just your bearing races, not your steering neck bearing, because you don't want it colder. It'll be a bigger fight getting that on. So get the bearing races out, the bearings off, and then we'll be ready for the install. Now for install, I'm going to start with the neck and put its seal on and its bearing first. And I'm going to have to go out to the garage to do that because I'm not going to beat on the floor in the house. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, or I'm going to take you out of the garage. See you in a minute. Okay, so we're going to smash this bearing on real quick. You will need a special tool for this, or I guess you could custom make one, but be careful. So it goes on first, lip facing up, sorry. Lip facing up. And then for the bearing, before you put it on, get ready. You want to make sure you get the right special tool to be able to do this. And you don't want it resting on the outer edge, just on the center of the inside body. So you're not on that outer ring, or you'll damage the bearing and waste it. So, but before we put it on, hammer it on, we're going to pack this thing full of grease. A lot of grease. Oh yeah, nice and sticky. And slide her on. Make sure you get it somewhat lined up the right way. All right. Now we're going to drive this guy on. Like I mentioned before, you don't want to throw this guy in the freezer because then you'll make this harder on you. All the way down. Nice solid sound, nice solid feel. Spacer isn't moving, or seal isn't moving. And that's that. Special tools. That's how you get the head bearing on. And now we're going to go and install the bearing races. So we'll get moved back in. We'll get set up. Let's do this. Right, I have a special tool, but like I said, extra credit. If you put them in the freezer, they shrink. Leave them there like overnight. You might get lucky and they might just pop right in, which this one is not. So it might need a little bit of assistance with a special tool. We're gonna be testing out the Motion Pro tool. So here we go. Looks pretty simple. Just gonna find the right diameter for the bearing race. I have to use that one. We have some clearance on the side edges, so we're gonna put our special tool in there. Slide our little puck, and then grab our washer, our nut on the bottom. And I did not bring the correct size ratchet wrench, so I'm going to be sitting here with a crescent wrench. I guess I could torque from the top. Get that all in place, nice and snug. And is that going to be a 14? That is a 14. So we want to tighten. Smash it down in there. Remember, if it starts to drift, you can take this puck off, loosen it up, take this puck out, draw him back in there, and then you can give it little taps on the edges with a hammer if it starts to go in sideways, like mine was doing there. But other than that, once it gets started and you're going, you'll hit a dead spot where it's really tight, and you're done. You just back it off. Just back it off. It'd be nice if I had someone in here to fucking help me. But no. Always choose the hard way. Always choose the hard way. Do it like that. There you go. Loosen it up. Puck out. Shaft out. There you go. Bearing race is seated. Easy peasy. Alright, so we got our bearing races in. It's time to put our triple tree on. I got the other bearing and seal for the top. And I guess I'll just show you how to do this. So before I put the triple tree in, the bottom triple tree, I'm going to go ahead and just put a grease on the bearing race itself, just so there's no dry surface. And might as well do the same thing up here while we're at it. Our fingers are all greasy. And I'm going to put a little more on this bearing before I put it on. Put a little thick layer on. Make sure I get all of it. I don't know if that was in camera or not. But anyways, got that on. Lift up frame. And set it in place. Doesn't have to be perfect just yet. We're gonna grab our other bearing, Cha-Cha. We're gonna grease him up really good too, just like we did the last one. There we go. Starting to pack her full. And then we're gonna put another thick layer on before we set it in the bearing race. We're just gonna set it on the triple tree for now, so I can get rid of these gloves. Move that out of the way. Garbage. Now, we're going to put our seal on with it. Hold the triple tree just right. Lip facing down, so it creates a seal. Spanner nut, and tighten your spanner nut. That'll be great when we're breaking in and seating the bearings when we ride it. So you're just going to go a little bit past snug. It's going to be kind of tight, but you're going to work it back and forth a little bit. Helps keep the bearings. Go back. I'm going to go a little bit more. Work it back and forth. And we're going to see if we can put any more on it. I don't want to go like super tight, or it's going to make it to where you can't turn without a lot of restriction, and it'll cause damage to the bearing races. I think we're ready to put the top tree on. So let me grab that. All right, so obviously facing the correct way, what have you. I'm gonna set this guy on, throw your washer on, and then, you know what? I think I have a different one of these. Hang on one sec, I'll be right back. Got a Works Connection shiny blue one. So, screw him on. Make sure the washer's underneath. And we're not going to tighten him just yet. We're gonna leave him somewhat loose so we can put the forks in. And then once we have the forks in as a guide, we're gonna tighten this down. So if you, and we're gonna tighten the bottom part of the triple tree on the forks, that way it stays in place too. Leave the tops loose, that way it can set in place. Because it's gonna go a little bit more. So one sec, let's get this all set up. This would be much easier if the bike was assembled on a stand. But no, I'm doing a ground up. So making a pain on myself. And now, back up here, eyes up here, Chief. Now, we can finally tighten down this cap. Look up red on me. This has a torque spec too. I'll probably have it in there, but I'm using this new unit steering neck tool, which is really nice so far. Nice and tight. Make sure we still have good play. We do. Perfect. And now, those are the exact same gap. So you can get a tape measure and measure it. You'll have different preferences. Some people like to run their forks higher up. I like mine pretty much right where standard's at. Make sure you always go back to the first one you tighten, because it gets loose when you tighten the second one. Ta-da. Get out of them forks. Cool. Now we can somewhat start going back together with the rest of the chassis. And that's that for steering neck.